Okay, hello and welcome to the second Agency Access Hangout. Today we are talking with creative consultants Karen De Silva and Andrea Maurio.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
So I am Nick Moy, the marketing coordinator here, broadcasting live from Agency Access headquarters. Before we jump into things here, I just wanted to remind everybody that they can use the Q&A feature on Google Plus here to ask some questions of the consultants. After this is over, they're going to do their best to answer as many as we can get to in the allotted time. You can also tweet your questions at us at Agency Access, and we'll pick out the best ones, and we'll go ahead and see how many we can answer at the end. So Karen, Andrea, today we are talking about the B word, right? Branding.
Yes, branding, our favorite subject.
Yeah, but I mean, before we jump into all of that, maybe you want to talk a little bit about your backgrounds, who you are. Introduce yourselves to the people.
Sure.
Karen.
I will, Andrea. I'm Karen. I've been in the photo world for a long time without dating myself. I really think that coming from the stock world and understanding the marketplace, and then being a part of like how to sort of figure out what a person's brand is and what their vision is and how they fit into the marketplace is sort of my specialty.
Okay.
And hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Maurio, and I'm a former photo editor who's worked for national magazines such as Runner's World before I joined Agency Access, and also Shape and Muscle and Fitness Hers. And just to kind of, since we're talking about brands, these magazines are all sports and fitness and health brands. So magazines are also brands.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I mean, let's start with the basics. If you look up branding online, it'll tell you that branding is the name, design, symbol, or any other feature that identifies one seller's product as distinct from other sellers. Maybe you can break this down in your own terms.
Well, usually when people ask me what branding is, I like to start with a great quote by Jeff Bezos over at Amazon. He said that like your brand is what people say about you when you're out of the room. So when I think of branding, I think of it as a personality in your work. It's the DNA that holds your vision together. It's a narrow focus, but it has endless potential. You know, it's basically the filter that you add on all your subjects.
Yeah, and I think I actually have a few samples here of like logos and brands. So logos, brands, and design and imagery are, whoops, there it is. It's definitely a marriage between the three. So all of these things must be consistent. Since you're not often there to speak to a client, this becomes your visual voice. There it is. Oops. Your visual voice, both online and offline. So here's some logos, here's some imagery, and some design.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows about brands. Everybody has brands they love and that are truly memorable. Personally, I mean, I love the branding that Coca-Cola does around the holiday season. It really sticks with you.
Yeah, branding and advertising, they're like two peas in a pod. A successful company's branding, it emotionally connects with their audience, and in turn, it elevates the product to represent something bigger. The right branding to the right customer will make a product more desirable. Just think if you can if your branding hits a nerve with a client, your work emotionally connects with that client. That's some competitive edge.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Maybe you can talk about some brands that you like, that do the branding thing well.
Sure. Let's think of some popular ones. Apple, it's think different, it's be creative. We're just not a company, we're a way of life. In fact, we're integrated into your life. Think of the iTunes as a soundtrack to your life. I mean, what a brilliant commercial that is. American Apparel, made in America, celebrating the youth, redefining America with the youthful twist. Their campaigns even look like a 20-something Instagram feed. And Snapple, I usually have a Snapple with me, made from the best stuff on earth. It's quirky, it's conceptual, it's real, it's authentic. Kind of makes you think a mom and pop sort of created it. It's like we care about what we put in our drinks. We care about you. We're just like you. Totally a very specific brand.
Yeah, and actually Karen and I had been talking about brands. We often do a presentation together, and some of the ones that I was thinking of are like everybody knows Nike. It's like the most memorable slogan and symbol. We all know it's the Nike swoosh. It's just do it. They basically have empowered the average Joe to get off the couch and get going. And that's one everybody knows. It's almost like a cult-like following. Another brand that I love right now is Fiat. Fiats have made a huge comeback, and the Fiat is selling Italian lifestyle, personality, its affordability, all in a compact car. So they are selling La Dolce Vita. It's Italian design meets American affordability. And then lastly, when we think about cell phones, my mind pops to the T-Mobile brand. Immediately I see magenta. Who doesn't see magenta when they say T-Mobile?
Yeah.
Nick? Karen?
No, I definitely do. I hear the jingle, the do-do-do-do. So, I mean,
right. You got the song in your head. And the cool thing about T-Mobile is that they incorporate social media in their new slogan. It's Unleash, and they promote it with the hashtag Simple Choice.
Yeah. I mean, those are some great examples. I mean, it's clear to me that having a strong brand makes people remember you. I mean, that's one of the primary advantages. I mean, maybe you could expand on this a little bit and talk about some other advantages that having a strong brand might give you.
Well, let's just think about this for a minute. So branding, it's that thing that you own, right? It's that thing that makes you different. This year, I saw that Ovation documentary, that Fashion Fun documentary on Ovation. I don't know if anybody else saw that, but I can honestly say I was like literally glued to the TV. And you got like Anna Wintour, sitting in this room with some of the giants of fashion today, and they're reviewing candidates for the fund. And she starts this eloquent monologue about branding while she's sort of arguing with people about who should be moving forward in this contest. And she says something like, I want to see this designer's brand. I want to know what they're passionate about. Like, I want to know what drives them. I really want to see the thing in their work that makes them, stay up at night. Can't even sleep about it. Sorry, getting all tripped up. It's such an amazing speech about like what brands can do, and branding, no matter what you are in fashion and photography, making soft drinks, running shoes, telephones. A great brand is infectious, like, period. It draws people in. It makes people believe in you. It gives you that confidence to understand what it is that person is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, have to agree.
Even Anna Wintour is her own brand. So
Absolutely.
And that a person can be their own brand.
Oh yeah, Michael Jordan. I mean, look at multiple examples. I mean, so we got a bunch of people watching this, and thank you to everybody who's tuning in right now. Why is this relevant to them? I mean, as a freelance artist, which I would imagine most of our viewers are, why is having a strong brand important to them?
That's an awesome question, Nick. Thanks for asking. So as a photographer, a good, strong brand means that the client in advertising or magazines is trusting you, meaning you, the photographer, to understand their brand. So your money should be invested in your promotional material, your website, strong imagery, logo, and design, so that it sends a message that you have invested in your photography business, and they can then see the value. So it basically goes hand in hand. You have to invest in yourself for others to believe in you.
Well, I mean, basically the bottom line here is that if you get your brand right, you look seasoned and consistent, right? We all know that thing that you see in somebody's work where you just know that they've gotten there. It's that consistency. And when you have consistency in your work, the clients know exactly what they're going to expect when they hire you. It's sort of a promise that this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I mean, Andrea, you were a photo editor, right, in the magazine industry. Maybe you can draw on, your experience from there.
Yeah, definitely. So as a former photo editor in the magazine industry, I can say firsthand that advertisers in the magazine resemble the images in the magazine. So next time you're paging through, take note of the advertisers in the magazine. This is a perfect example of branding for everyone. And it's a point that is actually calculated by advertisers. We know that the companies are brands, but even magazines are definitely brands, which I mentioned earlier. Each magazine has a specific message and brand that they use to describe and define their readers. So for instance, I'll use an example, like I'm grabbing a little bit of an outdated copy of Women's Health, but this is a brand, and it's about inspiring action in a woman's life. So words that you think about when you think about women's health is a lifestyle, active woman. So photographers, please take note that if you can identify your own brand to theirs, you definitely have a fit to pitch and market to.
I mean, we're exposed to branding every single day, unless you never leave your house and never turn on the TV, or and even then you're probably exposed to some branding.
Right, exactly.
You can't get away from it. So I mean, all right. So as a freelance artist, let's say I don't think that I have a particular brand.
You do. You have a brand. Everybody has a brand.
Yes, you do, and that's why you're here.
I like a perfect example. So the other day, I was talking to my husband about a client. Poor Jason. He has to pretend to be interested in what I have to say while I unwind every day for 30 minutes. And so I have this new client. We've been working together for a little while. I really love her work. Jennifer Rochelle. That's Rocholl. If you want to look it up. And I was talking to Jason about how the promos were going, and we were sort of in this place where it wasn't quite meshing yet with what she was doing and what we wanted to sort of package her as, right? And so I started describing her to Jason. She's like West Coast. She's like sunshine filter. She's like stylish. She's got a little street. She's off the cuff. She's sort of spontaneous. And Jason says, like, oh yeah, I can totally see the images, right? It's like some blonde whipping her hair around. And she's got a bikini bottom, but a retro t-shirt and sneakers. And she's really got nothing to do right now, but she seems to be totally fine with that. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly her. And it's, it's no surprise to me that she's shooting for companies like PacSun, O'Neill, Oakley, Nike. It's like when they go to Jennifer, when you want to take on that carefree, youthful, aspirational West Coast sort of life.
Karen, remember, I think I had mentioned to you, I actually also have a cool client that I've been working with in the adventurous sports industry, and so he's an outdoor adventure lifestyle photographer. So what I typically like to do with a photographer is define their visual strengths. So I'm going to grab a little sample here just to show you. So when I look at his work, his composition is artistic and edgy. It shows both emotion and intensity. So in some of these shots here, you can see, sorry, my color copier went down before this, but in black and white, these were black and white. So then I would take those words, composition, edgy, artistic, intense, and emotional, and kind of match them with some brands that represent the outdoor world. So outdoors, risk-taking, adventure, sporty, and youth, lifestyle are all good fit for Tobias. So then I think about the brands and those descriptions, and I try to match up what those words mean. And the brands such as Red Bull, Mountain Dew, which is a youth lifestyle, Under Armour and Black Diamond, Patagonia, and Nike all fall under action, adventure, and sports brands. So these are all really good examples of how you take a photographer's work and try to match it with the brand.
Right. Well, I mean, and the great thing about that example you gave, Andrea, Tobias, right? I mean, he's a lifestyle shooter, just like Jennifer is a lifestyle shooter. But, it's funny to me that you can take two people that shoot sort of a similar subject, yet have a totally different brand, right? And guess what? They're attractive to totally different clients.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, so before we continue here, I just wanted to remind everyone to keep submitting the questions in. You can submit them on Google Plus or just tweet us at Agency Access. Got some coming in already. They look great.
Woo-hoo.
So, I mean, let's get back to the viewers out there. I mean, what about their brand? What are some ways that, as a freelance artist, you can really kind of start digging into your body of work to flesh out your own personal brand?
You know, this is great. Let's go back to the people that are out there. You know, I'm going to assume that a lot of you guys are listening because you want to, you know, hear a little insight about how to define your brand. You know, Andrea alluded to something that we tend to do. We together have spoken to a few photo groups around the country, and the program we do is editorial versus commercial. Not that that's a shameless plug or anything, but it's basically a 90-minute presentation based on getting you, the photographer, the artist, right, to understand what you do well and how it fits in today's marketplace. And about halfway through the talk, right, when we've got everybody's attention, we make them pull out their pens and pencils and we ask them to answer a few questions. So why don't we do this? Just humor me for a little while, and let's go through some of the things that we ask them, and you know, think about some of your favorite pictures, and try to see if you can come up with some descriptors for your work. Yep. So what usually I'd say, like, you know, think about your work. You know, are your images narrative? Are they cinematic? Right? Are they something? Does it feel like something epic is about to happen? You know, are the images provocative? Do they push social norms? You know, are you thinking outside the box? Is there a rawness to what you're capturing? Do you connect, like, in an intimate way with your subjects? You know, do you make them feel heroic? Are they somewhat tragic? Do your images, like, hit an emotional chord by maybe focusing on something that feels so familiar? You know, are you inspired by color? You know, are you all about style and cropping? Is your work luxurious? Does it feel decadent? You know, are your images conceptual? Are they consumed with emotion? You know, maybe you illustrate a very specific lifestyle. Is it about being healthy, or is it about adventure travel?
I think as a photographer, it's basically all those words mean emulating a brand. And I think photographers need to realize they're bringing a product to life for an advertiser in some type of emotional way so that the advertiser can connect to their audience. And you do that through photography. So if we go back to the words that Karen mentioned earlier, I'll match her words and bring up an advertiser so that you immediately get a visual match with them. So the first one she mentioned, and these are all good keywords to jot down if you hadn't started to write them down earlier, was narrative and cinematic. So I think of brands that are sports brands, and that's like Nike and Adidas. They're very edgy, and they are shot in a way that could be very cinematic and gritty. Provocative. Provocative, immediately I think of Victoria's Secret, Benetton and Diesel. They're kind of got that sexy edge to them. When I think of iconic and emotional, I think of cool one is Ray-Ban sunglasses. Color, immediately think of a fashion brand, that's Kate Spade. Conceptual, who doesn't know the Skittle commercials? And then lastly, on an emotional side of things, I think of Farmers Insurance. So, you know, everybody, again, Nick, do you want to go for that song? We are farmers. So
Exactly.
So emotional. It plays with your emotions. So
yeah,
that's another word for branding.
Were you a professional singer?
I want to be. That's a personal plug.
All right. So we've talked now about, you know, what a brand is and how, you know, major kind of companies use them. We talked a little bit about how an artist can flesh out their own personal brand. I mean, what's the next step, really? It's got to be to put this brand into action, right, and implement it in your business strategy and in your marketing. Karen, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I'm starting to actually feel like a bit of a broken record, you know, but it's such an important message. You know, the idea of branding is that you're promising that you're going to deliver a consistent message, right? And it doesn't just stop at the images that you produce. Basically, branding is a crucial part in your whole business strategy.
So think of your imagery as the face. I'm doing the Madonna thing. The face of your business. Then your brand is the voice. So make sure that when you're thinking about clients that you want to pitch to and market to, make sure your work represents their style.
Right. And just getting back to your marketing and your marketing tools, your business tools. I mean, everything you produce has to have that filter of your brand. I mean, before anything sees the light of day, you have to ask yourself, does this tell my brand story? I mean, even if you're promoting 6 times a year, every 2 months, that's really not a lot of time. I mean, if you're not consistent, that client is not going to see you as like the same person. So when you think of all the things that go into your business, your logo, your promotional mailers, your e-promos, the social media posts, I mean, all that stuff that Andrea showed you sort of at the beginning. I mean, even those like wonderful, I love those like little wow pieces that are sort of a small run. I mean, the way to get on that coveted spot on the desk or pinned to that famous wall is really, just showing the whole package, like convincing this person that this is what you do, this is what I'm going to do for you.
Yeah, and a little side note, just as equally important, so once your items, like your marketing materials, arrive on their desk or an email, beyond the visual, it's equally important how you communicate and how you conduct yourself in person. Your in-person needs to be on brand as well, like how you present yourself. That's the way people remember you and associate you with your brand. That's how you get remembered.
Yeah. And I know it seems like a game, but there's just too many of you guys out there to play it safe. If you don't take that risk and you don't take a stab, draw a line in the sand, and say, this is me, this is what I own, you just come across as just playing it too safe. I mean, you look like you're struggling to find a focus. You look like you're just too generic. And I mean, guess what? You're like the last person people remember.
Right, Karen. The interesting thing is the buyer simply doesn't know what they're going to get if the photographer is not branded visually and doesn't present themselves well. A professional brand goes a long way in proving that you are playing in the big leagues and that you've fully invested in your photography career and your business. So clients are going to definitely take you seriously, and they'll know it's not a hobby for you, that this is your career, this is your livelihood.
Just listening to you answer that question, it really makes me think of, I think I've been in the business long enough to really have some favorite sort of myths like out there, and one of them is the idea that you can have a book of 20 different images, and then each image is sort of a different part of your business, so that collectively you cover 20 different clients. And I love answering and working with a photographer that sort of thinks that, because the problem is you're sort of looking at it the wrong way. This isn't about pleasing 20 different types of clients. This is about connecting with the one, right? Because that client that's looking at your book thinking, well, this picture is great, but the other 19 I'm a little worried about, isn't thinking, I'm going to hire this person because of this one picture. They're thinking, if I hire this person, what's the chances of them delivering one of these other 19 images when I really just want this one? And the guy that comes in, or gal, that brings in a book that's fully just so branded, like it's digestible. Everything that you look at feels like it's together. You know exactly who they are, and you've stopped sort of putting the energy into figuring out who they are. Now you're thinking about, how am I going to use this guy? That's where you want to be.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that that's a good segue into, the next logical question is, when I'm developing my brand, should I fine-tune it so that it speaks, to specific people, or is it better to have like a more generalized one?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one, Nick. So basically, you don't want to spread. I mean, you have to become the perfect fit. Like, you're not going to appeal to everybody, right? So it's important to be their perfect fit with a company. So I would suggest a few things. One is do the legwork, become an expert researcher, visit their websites, check out bookstores, and page through the magazines that I brought up earlier. Another really handy tip is, and I've mentioned this before when Karen and I do our commercial and editorial events, is every magazine has a media kit, and it's a great way to show visually what the magazine reader, who the magazine readers are. So you can go in and Google search it and type in media kit, women's health, men's health, runner's world, and they are specifically showing you who the target audience is and how they sell their products. So the magazine is branded by the clients that advertise inside them. And this is a great hint, photographers out there, matching your brand with a magazine or advertising client. You can just kind of check it out and then see if your work relates to the words and visual samples that they have in the media kit. And if they do, great, then promo away and try to make them your client as well.
And you know what, I mean, just to add, that a lot of clients, a lot of products, companies, you can Google like their brand statement or brand strategy or creative strategy. You'd be surprised at what you can find. So if you had a target list of 10 brands that you really felt was like on target with what your brand was, you could even go as far as to really understand what their strategy is, so that not only are you equipped to like have a great conversation with them about who they are and what you're trying to achieve, but it really helps you sort of understand like where you're getting positioned.
Yeah, those are some great tips for sure that maybe people haven't thought of before. I mean, we're getting a lot of really good advice here, but unfortunately we're running a little short on time, and I want to leave some time to address some of the questions that have been coming in here. But first, I mean, let's wrap up by maybe circling back to some of the more popular brands that you were talking about earlier. Using the words you mentioned, let's do like a little bit of a lightning round, I guess. I'll mention a brand, and you say the type of photographer you think would shoot for that brand. Cool?
Cool. I'm focusing. I'm focused in.
Okay, focusing.
Wait, first, are there prizes? No.
There's no prize.
I'm very competitive. No.
Okay, so we'll do, I guess we'll go Karen and Andrea, Andrea. So let's...
Game on.
Let's do one you talked about, Karen. Apple. Who would shoot for Apple?
Apple, great. Okay, Apple. Let's see. I would say you would have to be authentic, right? You would you'd have to be able to shoot with real people or actors that that can become people. You would have to know your natural light, right? I mean, enough that it looks natural at least. You'd have to really do believable lifestyle, right? Because you would want these images to seem almost like cinematic moments, yet they're using these products.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right, Andrea, you worked for Runner's World, so how about Nike?
Nike. So I know that everybody immediately thinks, yes, you have to be a sports photographer, but let's not forget you can also be a lifestyle photographer or a fashion photographer to shoot for Nike, because they are a very prominent brand. So you could be a sports photographer, you can be a great fashion shooter, or you can be a lifestyle shooter. You can be, so words that come up to mind is like an editorial feel to your work. You're really good at reportage or storytelling, but you also have exceptional lighting skills to capture action and keep it candid and in the moment. So there's a commercial appeal that has to happen too.
Okay. All right, back to Karen. One you mentioned earlier, American Apparel.
Okay. The thing that strikes me when I think of like the visual brand of American Apparel is that the images feel so temporary, right? Like they feel like they're actually something you would Instagram. There's like this sort of freeze of a moment, or there's like a really intimate sort of space. Something that these days gets like broadcast on like Instagram or on your Facebook or just text to somebody. So there's this like rawness to it, but we all being professionals can look at it and know that there's production value there. So it's a really nice sort of mix of like it probably tricks most people when they're looking at it, but it's it's young, it's fresh, it's in your face, it's edgy, it's sexy, but like sexy is really as a describing factor to photography is really changing. I mean, there's like a sort of a sassiness to it, but it's very of the moment. I don't think everybody does that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. All right, last one, Andrea. How about fiat?
Ah, the fiat. I like to say it like that. Fiat.
Yeah.
I think immediately when I think of fiat, you should be a commercial photographer, of course, like someone who has some impeccable lighting skills in the commercial industry that can shoot product, but also at the same time, I think of a lifestyle photographer that might have a little bit of a style to them or fashionable. So those are all the things and descriptive words that fiat that I mentioned earlier seem to fit with the photographers that want to go and market to them.
All right. Okay, lightning round over.
Answer, Andrea.
Woo-hoo. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, we got great info today on what a brand is, how to identify your own brand, and how to implement it into your marketing plan. So let's move on to some of the questions that we got here. We got some good ones, and all right, here's one from Stan S. So Stan is saying, I've been in the business for a long time, so I have a diverse base. I understand what you mean about not showing too many styles or types of imagery, but are you suggesting I sort of blow off my old clients by not showing the sort of work that got me in the door to begin with? I mean, what are your suggestions for that? Maybe one of you can.
What was the bottom line? What was the bottom line of the last part of the question? Sorry.
So, I mean, he wants to know what he should do with older clients, that he kind of got his foot in the door with, developing his.
And I can take this one. I think that you got to ask yourself the work that you've done with some of your older clients, is that the sort of work that you want to be doing? I hear it all the time from clients. They start showing me work, and then it turns out that work isn't really what they're really about. Of course, they're not going to turn it down, but it might not actually be part of their like modern brand strategy. So that's sort of the angle, I think, of my answer, like that, maybe it represents work that you've gotten in the past, but is it really what you're advertising that you can do, right? And then the second part to that would be that, a brand can be a little wider than very specific. I mean, it can sort of cover a few different subjects. Like you could be a kid's photographer as well as a portrait photographer, but there are real elements to it that, if you figure out your brand really by beginning with what your visual strengths are, I think you're going to find that there is like a connection there,
Yeah, I think this is a crossover for sure, Karen.
And maybe it takes somebody that isn't connected to your work to sort of help you bring that out, as well as a designer to figure out how to sort of create, a look for, your packaging that really makes sense of why the work is there together. I mean, this is so crazy. We're talking about branding for photography, right? And how big it is. I mean, when did a photographer ever need a logo? I mean, this is like crazy, right? I mean, for the last year, I've been pushing logos, and it's not that for any other reason than it just seems like people are just really embracing it. Like it's just one more way to remember who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all right. Thank you. All right. Let's move on. So we got some questions emailed in here. All right. Okay. Here's a good one from a Jeff M. Is it okay to have multiple brands? Who wants that one?
So I think I'll jump in by saying, when you say multiple brands, or do you mean like multiple types of galleries on your website? I mean, I think you should stick with a single brand personally, so that, like Karen said, when you're creating a brand, you're creating a logo, you're creating a type treatment, and your photography is still the same no matter what. Like Karen mentioned earlier, like you have a fashion photographer who might also do portraits. So still stylistically, your photography is the same. So I think hopefully you mean that you might have different types of imagery, but it's all under the same brand.
We were out in LA last year. I was with like Lynn Kyle, another consultant, and we were doing this panel on marketing, and we had some of our clients, some of your clients, art directors and or not so much art directors, art producers and art buyers, as well as like photo editors for magazines. And one of the women on the panel was saying that she is, she's one of the head art buyers, and it's her job to sort of manage the resources for like 100 art directors. And when she gets a promo, she looks at it and says, oh, this person shoots, portraits. Oh, this person shoots sports. And like what she does, because she's almost like the librarian, she catalogs your name and your website within a document so that when at any given time somebody could say, hey, I need like 5 photographers that do this, that she could pull it. She said the thing that stumps her the most is the guys that come in and are generalists, the ones that say that they can do food, they can shoot a cute picture of a kid, they can do a travel shot, they can do something fashiony. She said that those people don't fit her system, and so they kind of move to another pile. And at the end of the day, that pile just doesn't get put in, or it does as miscellaneous. But who comes to an art buyer and says, I need a miscellaneous photographer? It just doesn't happen. People really like to pigeonhole you. You just have to figure out like what makes the most sense for you, like what's your strongest asset, and how to take a risk and just really follow it through.
Yep, I agree. You have to, again, back to that visual strength, like what is your visual strength, and market to that. I mean, even when we do our marketing programs with Agency Access, we are typically choosing, photographers may have several galleries, but we're typically choosing one market to go after. So we don't normally put a still life and a portrait and this and that all in one promo card, because it would add confusion to the client, and they want a focused package.
But unless you're local, right? If you're local and you're just trying to say, I'm the guy that can do it all, and there's like a handful, maybe you would do that. But, and if you're really, was it Paul? Who's the guy that answered the question?
Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff. If you really are split, have a split personality. I mean, wedding photographers and assignment photographers do it all the time. I mean, if you really can't decide, make 2 sites. Make sure that your brand for site 1 is really tight, and that you send it out to a certain type of client that's really going to find that relevant, and do the same thing with your alter ego.
It's a perfect segue to another question that I see coming in here. I'm a wedding photographer. Do I need a brand?
Oh, yes. I mean, talk about like a renaissance wedding photography. I live in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, actually, and there's a space. It's like a night market, and it's a night market on Fridays and Saturdays. But we're seeing more and more like organizations go in and rent it. And just like a month ago was the indie wedding, and it was based on the Pinteresty kind of wedding that had a very specific aesthetic. And when I talk to photographers that do weddings, it's really amazing how personality really falls into it. I mean, these brides to be bring these scrapbooks of stuff that they found, and they know exactly what sort of feel they're going to emulate from Pinterest or from Knot or from Martha Stewart. I mean, talk about hitting a chord with somebody. If you presented your work just like you would, like this bride wants her album to be. In an event like a wedding that couldn't be more stressful. How nice to have like the reassurance that like the photographer that you have is going to record all these great memories really gets it. Like, it's kind of got your back.
I think also when I think about wedding photography, you have like different target markets, right? So you have some photographers are marketing to a super high-end celebrity type wedding photographer, and then you have a middle income. Most people kind of fall into that range, and so you have to cater to your client in that way and what they can afford. So you have some type of over-the-top wedding photography, and then you have more of the consumer that everybody is familiar with. So it's all about catering to your clients, I guess. It also fits into that no matter what.
Great. All right. I think we have time for just one more question here. So how about this one? How can I make sure my brand stays fresh and relevant to today's marketplace? Good question.
Good question. Can I start?
Sure.
So I think of imagery in this case and say you have to stay current. And even using fonts, you have to stay current. So fashion goes in and out, so does photography. So stylistically, you should make sure that any clothing and makeup and hair looks current, updated, so that your images don't look dated. Oftentimes we do a lot of web edits for agency access, and that's the first thing that I will pull out of someone's website or promotional material. Or if they don't have it, I ask that they go shoot it. So if you don't have it, go produce it. So, Karen?
The thing about your brand is that remember, it's a reflection of your vision and your voice, right? So, you wouldn't be a photographer that was locked into something that you did 5 years ago. I mean, your vision, it doesn't have a makeover, but it evolves, and so your brand evolves. I mean, there are trendier brands than others. I mean, you just have to look at the marketplace to really sort of see that. But I think you have to have enough space within that brand and confidence as to what you do to know that if you just need to feel what sort of what's in you, get that out as a filter to what you're shooting, and you'll see that it'll keep moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for those great answers. So before we go, we always like to leave the audience with some parting words of wisdom. So Karen, Andrea, what do you have to say to the people watching right now?
Oh, let's see. All right. So my best advice to you is to take risks. Like, just find something that's yours. Just own it. Like, make that be you. Your business needs to be bigger than just the images you like to take. But if you can connect emotionally with your clients, then it's a big win. Think of the brands that you like. That you're loyal to. I mean, if it's a pair of jeans or a pair of running shoes or sunglasses. I mean, ultimately, there's so many out there. Why is it that you've connected with this one? So, make your images mean something, and definitely do your research. I mean, that was, something Andrea said, when she talked about the media kits and, looking for that kind of stuff. I mean, these days, everything comes to the client. So, it's a bit of a romanticized idea that they're going to come find and discover you. I mean, you need to figure out what clients have a very specific problem and that your work really answers that problem. Connect with them.
I think also for me, like my parting words are, when you're thinking about developing a brand identity, I often ask my photographers this, and you should ask yourself this if you're not working with a consultant, but what is my visual strengths of my photography, and how do they match the target clients? Like when I did that little example with Tobias McPhee, I also really feel it's just as important in our regular lives to have like accountants and fitness trainers and things like that. I think it's worthwhile to hire a team to assist you in your photography business or illustration business. So like try to get a team together that can help you look the best and most professional. So like a designer to help you with logo and branding. If you have somebody that that can help copyright a few words on your promotional material and help you with your about page on your website, and seek out a great somebody who has a great eye for editing out images on your website and your promotional material. I think ultimately my favorite saying is branding takes a village. So you really, if you think that way, it's just a better way to look at branding. So thanks.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, both of you, for taking the time to speak with us. And, obviously thank you to everybody who's watching out there, either live right now or if you're watching this later on we're going to be putting a recorded version of this up on our YouTube channel. So take a look for that in the next few days. I also wanted to mention that if you want to reach out and learn more about Andrea and Karen, you can just go to the Agency Access website or just get in touch with us, and you can learn more about what they do and how they can help you out as an artist with your branding. Finally, we are going to be releasing a supplemental ebook to go along with this Hangout, as we did with the last one. And it's just some further thoughts from Karen and Andrea about branding that we couldn't quite squeeze into this little Hangout here. So I think that's going to be about it for us. So thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, we are Agency Access.
Thank you.
Thanks again.